Netflix, what a sad state you are in right now. That's right, before I even mention what movie we're talking about today, I'm going to rant about Netflix for a second because they just recently changed their location policies and family sharing, and it is just absurd. There is not a single other streaming service out there that is as strict, frustrating, and overly greedy as goddamn Netflix. Combine that with the fact that the CEO once said something along the lines of, yeah, at some point we're hoping to just replace movie theaters. Like, shut the hell up. I've been tempted to cancel my subscription time and time again, especially considering their content tends to be subpar, at least when it comes to films, which is most of what I watch. I do watch some Netflix original shows like Stranger Things and whatnot, but holy shit, today we are talking about The Electric State, and it is not only their most expensive project ever, but also one of their worst. So this film is an action-adventure type, family-friendly movie, and it opens with a 10-minute long exposition piece that is extremely massive in scope and tries to convey so much information. So I'm going to try to cut it down as much as I can here. But essentially we watch an alternate version of the 90s in which robots become a very prominent part of society. They become integrated in everyday tasks that humans need to complete, and they exist in total subservience. So as one would predict, they eventually become sentient enough to be like, hey, you know, we kind of deserve rights ourselves. This causes a war to ensue between humans and machines. The humans win the war using tech from Center, a corporation that has developed headsets that you can essentially put on and upload your mind into these drone robot bodies, and that is what allows the humans to gain the upper hand in the war. The robots lose and are exiled to an exclusion zone. During the war, Michelle, played by Millie Bobby Brown, loses her parents and her brother in a car accident that is completely unrelated to the conflict happening around them. But she eventually discovers that her brother may not be dead after all, and once she discovers a couple of clues, she sets out on an adventure to locate him. This is directed by the Russo brothers, who I think did a fantastic job with the 4 Marvel films that they worked on, and everything they've developed since then has been rubbish at worst and passable at best. Let's start with the things that I liked. A lot of money was spent on this, and a good majority of it does appear on screen, at least in terms of the visual grandeur. I mean, the robots appear to be almost exclusively brought to life through digital effects, and they do look great, like fantastic. This is some of the best VFX I've seen in a while. They're all designed for different purposes, so there's like a robot that cuts hair, and I thought it was cool how they were differentiated based on what their purpose was when they were made. And I think the Russos do a decent job with bringing spectacle to life. I mean, they had to do so with the Avengers, which they did an excellent job of, and they do a good job here too. There's a lot of sweeping visuals. What I didn't like is pretty much everything else about this gigantic pile of scraps. This movie wants to have a beating heart so badly, and it just doesn't. It tries for that Spielberg-esque feel of something like E.T., in which we follow a main character who finds themselves becoming close with a very inhuman being that has been villainized by, in this case, the capitalist government that is running things. It brings me no pleasure to report this, but I think Millie Bobby Brown's performance is horrible in this movie. I do like her in Stranger Things, but I'm starting to get the feel that that's simply a result of the fact that her character, 11, in Stranger Things, is socially inept, so some of her dry line delivery fits. Everything that I've seen from her post-Stranger Things has been, just like the Russos, very subpar. And combine that with the comments that she made about not enjoying watching films, it just leads me to believe that her passion isn't exactly jumping onto the screen. She is accompanied on this journey by a character played by Chris Pratt, who's doing his usual dude bro persona. There's a semi-weak backstory that we get for his character because he was in the army and fighting against the robots, and also developed an unlikely friendship with one of them. Chris Pratt is a very quippy guy. It would certainly help if they gave him better quips to work with, but his character is just a nothing burger, and a lot of supporting cast members are completely wasted here, like Ke Huy Quan, who has been in 2 of the worst movies of the year so far, which just hurts my heart, man. Same with Stanley Tucci, who plays the main bad guy here. Totally cookie cutter villain with zero complexity. I forgot to mention that this story is based on a series of illustrated novels by Simon Stålenhag, I believe is his name. I have not read the books, but from the imagery that I have seen, It looks to be much more gritty and evocative of a post-war dystopia. This film adaptation does occasionally resemble it visually, but I don't think the mood was transferred over in the slightest. This is just your average derivative cyberpunk slop that feels like it wants to imitate that, but it doesn't understand the themes. It doesn't have the heavier angle that I think the novels had. And I'm not going off of my own opinion, obviously, because I haven't read them. But reading some of the thoughts of people who have read the books has shown me that none of the people involved with this movie understood it. And the progression of events is just extremely dull as we move from side quest to side quest, location to location, meeting different side characters who ultimately prove to be pointless in the overall story. I mean, the end goal is extremely clear from the get-go. We need to get to Center's headquarters and find Michelle's brother, and that's about all there is to it. I think back to something like Ready Player One, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but at least that film felt like it had some degree of edge in terms of commenting on technology's role in society and how we become far too desensitized and over-reliant on technology to the point that we become socially disconnected from one another. There is no such nuance to be found in The Electric State. It is occupied by atrocious dialogue that is obscenely unfunny. As I said, most of the humor comes from Chris Pratt's character, and it all falls totally flat. And at the end of the day, it just feels utterly mechanical, like it was packaged for mass appeal, and that's all that mattered to the creative team behind it. When it comes to movies like this that I just won't recommend to anybody, I am tempted to dive into spoilers, but I'm not going to. What I will say, though, is where it goes in the third act with the brother character and how it connects to Center's plans. I just thought it was implausible, stupid, garbage. Even Alan Silvestri's score is just so loud and over the top and obnoxious. It has a lot of similarities to his scores from Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, which leads me to believe that even he didn't have his head in the game when working on this. Like, we'll be watching the most mundane chase sequence that is super low stakes, and the soundtrack that is playing in the background sounds like the moment where Captain America picks up Thor's hammer. I really don't know what else to say. This is a massive waste of $320 million. I'm going to give The Electric State 1.5 stars. Don't watch this. I promise it's going to bore you, even if you play it as background noise, which is really the best case scenario. Am I concerned about the fact that these are the two guys in charge of the next two Avengers movies? Not really. I think they work best when they're under the reins of somebody else, and I know most directors are the opposite and should be let free to do creatively what they want. But especially after the Russos' comments about most movies in the future being made 60% with AI or whatever, I don't know what the hell they're talking about, but they need to be put in check. So those are my thoughts on The Electric State. Be sure to let me know down in the comments what you think of it if you do check it out. I'll catch you guys in the next review. See you later.